Welcome to everyone. We're really glad to have you here to introduce the National Artificial Intelligence Research Resource Pilot. We will have three folks who we're going to be talking to today. I'll start and I'll introduce myself here in a minute to kind of give an overview of NAIRR and what's possible. And then Dave Hart from NCAR will jump in to talk about some of the computational resources that are available. And then Timothy Middlekoop at the end will talk about how to get to actually work through the process of becoming to getting resources and whatnot. Each of us will talk for 20 to 30 minutes depending, and we'll have ample time at the end for questions. In the meantime, you're always welcome to put your questions in the chat, and we have several folks here that are able to answer them. I think that's about it. Am I forgetting anything? All right. So let me share my screen here. And okay, so hopefully you all are seeing the not note slide. So I am Shelley Knuth. I'm the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Research Computing here at the University of Colorado in Boulder. My day job is to run the Research Computing Group here. If you're unfamiliar with us, you should check us out. We have the campus's supercomputer as well as our large-scale data storage, and we can provide access to secure computing and cloud computing as well. So come check us out. Most of our services are absolutely free, so you're welcome to visit us. In my second job, I am PI of the Access Support Project, which is a national grant that provides large-scale computational resources from some of the largest supercomputing centers in the country to folks who need them. And my third job, and probably I have a few others after that, is the lead for the NAIRR User Experience Working Group. All of these positions are relevant to what we'll be talking about with the NAIRR project. So NAIRR is a National Artificial Intelligence Research Resource Pilot. And really what the charge is for this is to connect US researchers and educators to large-scale data, computational training resources to basically help people understand artificial intelligence better and to be able to have access to the resources so that they can conduct whatever research or course needs that they may have. We are really interested in making sure that we're getting all of that information out to as many people as we can. And this has actually spanned several presidential administrations. And so that's, really neat to see that it has continued to progress. In President Trump's first term, there was a task force executed that, sorry, I'm trying to get my fan on me here. Task force that was executed that gave some recommendations to Congress and to other folks about what the US would need if we were going to bring forward more information across the country about artificial intelligence. That task force recommended that pilots start, and then that pilot, if it were to move to implementation phase, that Congress should put about $2.6 billion behind that. Now, of course, that's a recommendation that was made a few years ago, so we'll see what happens from that. But what did happen was the pilot was formed, and that came through an executive order by President Biden, and the NAIRR pilot started in January 2024, and it has been planned to be a 2-year pilot. So if you're following along with your math, that would imply that the NAIRR pilot would end in this upcoming January 2026, And then in theory, if the pilot has been successful, we move to the implementation phase. I can't speak to what will happen after the pilot, but you know, we've been working on this for a couple of years now, and we're heading into the last few months, at least, as we know right now, of the pilot. As the presidential administration just changed over again within the last few months, we were happy to see that the NAIRR was reinforced in a couple of ways. One, a few months ago by President Trump in a recent fact sheet, and then the proposed budget that just went out about 2 weeks ago actually names NAIRR specifically in the budget. So, you know, there's interest. Basically, there's a lot of bipartisan interest in Congress. There's interest from both presidential administrations about the NAIRR pilot. And this is, you know, really cool for us here at CU because our group is really heavily involved in NAIRR, and there's opportunities for researchers at CU Boulder and in RMAC to, you know, leverage themselves for to have access to these resources and this knowledge for future funding opportunities, because as some of you may know, there's been 5 areas of interest that have been put out by the current administration. And one of them, in fact, I think the first one on the list, I don't know if that's their priority number 1 or not, is on artificial intelligence. So this is all really relevant for you if you are living in the grant world, or if you just really want to know more about AI. NAIRR is really interesting too, because there are several federal agencies that are collaborating together. And that's, you know, not always a common thing. There's, you know, just a lot of cross communication. It's being led by the National Science Foundation, but there's heavy involvement from other federal agencies. And these federal agencies are also working very closely with industry partners. And these industry partners are heavily involved in NAIRR and providing some resources, and Dave will be talking about that in a minute. What we're doing in the pilot is we're learning, we are experimenting, we're testing all kinds of things out, and we're moving toward that full implementation phase. And this pilot is really, it provides us opportunities to bridge that gap for researchers or instructors who lack access to AI resources or knowledge for, you know, what to do with this information. We want to make sure that everything is available for folks, whether you're at an R1 institution or a non-R1 institution, whatever discipline that it is that you're in. We are, our goals are really to figure out how to provide that information out to everyone who needs it. And I realized, so I stole a bunch of slides from Dave, who's then going to be talking right after me. So I'm going to jump through some of this because Dave is, you know, going to speak way better to this. I stole some of these slides from a talk that I had also given a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to jump through some of this, but just to say that NAIRR is available for everyone. You know, there are a lot of people that might say, well, I don't have, you know, the knowledge to be able to leverage all of these things. I don't have, you know, I'm not in the right discipline. I'm not doing research, I'm doing administrative work, whatever the case may be. You know, there's a lot of components to NAIRR, and I really want to make sure that everybody understands that this is something that is, you know, available for everyone. We do have some access to some of the premier AI resources in the country besides just that knowledge. And, you know, these are really around computational infrastructure, tools and models and software, data sets, and then training and educational resources. And I'm actually going to stop sharing here for a second and jump ahead because like I said, I have a bunch of slides here on the that Dave's going to cover. So yeah, so let's jump right back here. With NAIRR, there's a lot of resources out there, and if you go to the nairrpilot.org webpage, you'll be able to, you know, take a look around and see exactly what it is that is out there. You can look at the current opportunities for calls that may be there. You can take a look at projects and take a look at we have one person here at CU Boulder who has a project, and you can see it on the map, and there's several in the Boulder area. So hopefully we can add your name to that list at some point. But there's a lot of information, our YouTube channels, all of these things can be found off of this page. There's additional community resources. Again, I mentioned the YouTube channel. We record a lot of our events. We've had showcase events. We've had other informational events, and we put all those up on the YouTube channel, which you can go directly to here, or it's linked off of the webpage that I had just shown. We Tim's group and Laura Michael's group has put together as a Noto platform for us to share some reports and presentation slides. And you can also go and check that out if you want to see, you know, any kind of information about NAIRR and some of the past presentations that have been happening.
Shelley, I don't think you're sharing your screen for us for the slides.
Oh, what are you saying?
Just you.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. I think when you
apologies. Oh, I didn't slide back when. Okay.
Perfect.
How about now?
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll just pop these right back up, but these are on our NAIRR webpage, and so you can link it off of there, or you can go there directly. We do have a read the docs link. It's coming soon. Our team, Layla Freeborn, who's also part of the CU Boulder Research Computing Group and part of Access and part of NAIRR, she's been working with our team to get together some resources, how-to guides, tutorials, things like that up on our read the docs page. And so that will be there shortly. And then we also have a GitHub as well that hosts, you know, community learning resources and things like that. So if you need some help, you're about to learn a lot, as I said, after this. This is just, you know, what I'm talking about is just the overview. After this is really what is the meat and potatoes of everything. And if, you know, you have interest in joining NAIRR and you have interest in, you know, leveraging it for as much as you possibly can, we're here to help you. So no question is, you know, unwelcome. Don't be afraid to ask. We're all beginners here. You know, AI is a thing that's been around for a while, but it's really hit the stage in the last couple of years. And, you know, so please just reach out to us for help and ask. And there's a lot of different ways that you can get help asynchronously, as well as with talking with folks. So we have NAIRR Pilot office hours. They're the second and fourth Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern time, 1 p.m. Mountain time. You know, we ask if you can that you register, and you can do that on the NAIRR Pilot page as well. And then we'll have people there who will be able to help you, or at least direct you to folks that will be able to help you. We'll learn about what resource providers are in a second, but resource providers are the folks who are providing those computational resources. So within NAIRR, for example, we may have the team at Pittsburgh Supercomputing Center, for example, who are providing resources, and they have their own office hours. So in addition to the NAIRR level office hours, there's also the individual providers who have office hours, and those kind of run the gamut of times and dates. So if you go to nairrpilot.org and to the events page, we have a listing of all of our events, including those individual resource provider office hours. You can also submit a ticket. You can ask a question, or if you need a consult, you can submit a ticket and we'll make sure to pass that along. You may very well be chatting with someone from the CU Boulder Research Computing team as we are monitoring some of those tickets, but we may pass you along to some of the other folks on this call as well. And again, you can get to a link to submitting the ticket. It's on the nairrpilot.org page. You can also attend, besides office hours, you can attend an upcoming event or training session. Those are on our events page as well. And check back frequently. We have, we're always offering different things that, are coming up, and there's times when we're offering things from industry partners and whatnot. And if there's something on there that you would really like to see, but it isn't appearing there, let us know, because we really want to know what is of interest to the community. And then just for the last few slides, I want to talk a little bit about what we're learning in this pilot and why it's so relevant. And so I said at the very beginning that a few things, but I'll reiterate it because I see, some folks are joining as well. NAIRR is a pilot. It is moving toward the implementation phase. The pilot ends in January as far as, what our current guidance is. And then it'll, sort of what is coming next. And as I said, in this pilot phase, we're testing a lot of things out and we're trying to learn about what's important to folks. And CU Boulder is really tied into this process. NCAR is tied in. There's a lot of local folks here that are really tied into this. And this is really, again, this is a pivotal way for you all to put yourselves in a position where, where you can, be even more competitive when you're applying for grants, or, put yourself in a position where you're able to learn more information that can help with your job skill set or whatever that will be. And we are here to help you. And when I say we, I say the folks in the CU Boulder Research Computing Group, anybody at NAIRR, all of these things, we're here to help you, and we want to help you succeed. With the user experience working group, so myself and Alana Romanella, who is here on this call as well, we are leading this effort, and we're trying to figure out what the user experience is like. And so it's really helpful for us to continue to talk with you all as well, so that we can make recommendations as we're moving through the pilot toward the implementation phase. So some of the things that we presented to you, like the office hours and some of the trainings and things, were born from ideas that came from the user experience working group. We work with other resource providers, we work with the other NAIRR teams, and we work with other groups as well to try and figure out, again, what do you all need to be able to succeed? And we've learned a lot so far, and I'll kind of jump through this so we can get into some of the other things, but I think it's really interesting. People are really, really interested in AI. People are they really want to know, some folks want to know the more advanced stuff. There's a lot of folks out there who really want to learn more about just that beginner level things. The Rocky Mountain Advanced Computing Consortium, or RMAC, which some of you may be members of, CU Boulder chairs that consortium, and it's a consortium of folks in the Rocky Mountain region, different institutions that have an interest in supercomputing or research computing. And we did a big event in April, and we're doing another one here on campus in August to teach folks about AI. And we put out surveys and things. And one thing that we've learned is that, especially in our regional consortium, folks are really interested in that beginner level information. When we put it out to our research computing community, those folks felt a little more intermediate. And so we've tried to tailor some of our topics for teaching around that. The number one thing that seems to come up across everywhere is folks want to learn more about tools. They want to know, how do I leverage this tool from this industry partner? How do I leverage this tool to be able to do this thing? Everybody's also super interested in growing their job skill set so that they can be more competitive in their careers or in grant applications and things like that. It also introduces a new set of folks to our community in high performance computing, which is really great because, when we did the workshop in April, there were a lot of folks who would never, they'd never heard of high performance computing. They never used a supercomputer before they were there because they were interested in AI. We had them doing some things on a supercomputer, and, just is, that's part of folks' individual growth patterns as well, so that they're growing their skill sets. We've done a lot of surveys, and the one on the left is a survey that we sent out, as I said, to the entire high performance computing community. And then the one on the right, we sent out to just the Rocky Mountain Advanced Computing Consortium community, or our regional consortium that I had mentioned that CU Boulder leads. We had 400 responses to the first one and about 80 to the second. What's really interesting here is that for the HPC community, most people really wanted to learn how to use AI in their research or their projects, whereas when you talk to RMAC, it was a lot more spread out. And folks were really, there were a lot of folks who said, I've heard of AI, but I don't really know how it works and I want to learn more. So we've been tailoring some of our training offerings to meet that. When we've asked folks, what's your biggest challenge with AI? The need to understand more with tools and how to use those tools is still the biggest thing for all folks of interest. But there's been a lot more interest in terms of that. I feel intimidated by the concept, and I feel overwhelmed and that kind of thing from our regional partners. And then, as I said, we held an event in August or April that introduced a lot of folks to AI, and we asked them what topics were of interest, and then we did another survey in advance of the August workshop that we're holding. And most people, again, really interested in learning more about AI tools and how they can use AI in their research or in whatever their work activity is. So we're really excited to be a part of NAIRR. We're really interested in helping folks here to become a part of NAIRR, to put in requests to access computational resources, and to submit proposals to get access and whatnot, and to come to trainings and things. So again, if you have any questions, you can feel free to email me directly if you'd like. You might get a little bit of a faster response if you submit a ticket through the NAIRR Pilot website. And again, a lot of folks from us here locally are answering those tickets anyway, and we're always happy to do a consult with you and have these more in-depth conversations. So that is all I had. And not sure, sorry, Alana, are we taking questions now or at the very...
We're going to wait until the very end, Shelley.
All
So
right.
we will move to Dave if he's ready next. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks.
Sure. Let me share my slides here. Okay, can everyone see those? Awesome. So, hi, everybody. My name's Dave Hart. I am here in Boulder at the National Center for Atmospheric Research, or NCAR. I am also co-PI on the Allocations Award for the NSF Access Program, and I'm co-chair of the Allocations Working Group for the NAIRR Pilot. And today, just going to talk to you about the resources available through the NAIRR Pilot. And there are quite a few. But yeah, this Shelley gave you a spoiler on this slide, but want to emphasize here first that the part that still amazes people and people need to know is that these resources are for you, no experience necessary, no cost to you, right? That's the most surprising part. No cost to you, to your grants. If you're a researcher or instructor from a US 2 or 4 year academic institution or nonprofit, you can use these resources. If you have any source of funding in the federal agencies or other sources, or possibly no sources, you can apply in any area of applied AI. in line with the NAIRR and NSF priorities. So it's a pretty broad program in terms of who can access it. So if you're on this call, you almost certainly are eligible to apply for these resources. To do so, Tim Middlekoop's going to talk about how you do this in a little more detail later, but just quickly, there's allocations available. You go to the NAIRR Pilot website, current opportunities. There's a research resources call. That's for research projects, obviously, and a classroom and educator resources call for classroom activities. Both of these require short proposals. We'll go into more of that in the later presentation. And this just started this week, and I don't have any graphics for it, but there is a new startup opportunity where with just a short project description, you can get a small amount of resources that can be awarded within 2 weeks to get you started. The goal for these is to help you get some access to resources so you can write a larger scale proposal. And as Shelley mentioned, if you have questions about the allocations pilot or in the NAIRR pilot later, submit a help ticket. We're there to respond to those to help you navigate the process. All right, I don't want to go into too much here either. I know this is coming up later, but just a reminder that resource proposals aren't research proposals. So we're not looking at re-reviewing your funded research. Just summarize your research objectives, but emphasize your computational plan and justify your resource needs. We'll go into, Tim will go into much more detail about all of that. Important other comments I want to make is describe your resource flexibility. Don't assume that you need a very specific type of resource and then hope that the pilot has such resources. You should look at what resources offer and try to map what you need to what resources are available. I encourage you to consider non-GPU hardware that might work for your problems. There's quite a few of those in the pilot. And if you do need GPUs, being able to run on more than one or more than one node of GPUs is an important part of your workflow you should describe in these. All right, with that, let's first start here with an important and very unique piece of the NAIRR pilot, the private sector resource partners, right? These are leading edge offerings from corporations and nonprofits, and they're so new, we're really still struggling how to classify them, but this was my attempt here. The three major cloud providers are part of the NAIRR pilot, and I want to emphasize for those that yes, they do have GPU instances available, but you can ask for anything within their platforms and for your project. So they have specialized AI services, Lambda services for AWS. Azure has access to OpenAI's models. So look at what they have to offer, and you can request those for your AI projects. I wanted to give a shout out to NVIDIA. Their DGX Cloud has been a part of the pilot, but is now currently full. We are looking at bringing in a new cloud provider that will offer some more extensive GPU resources. That's just should be in place in the next week or so. Cerebras, makers of the wafer scale engine, their CS2 system is a part of the pilot. You can ask for direct access there. Inferencing and model service from Anthropic and their Claude models. The Grok LPU inference engine is available. OpenAI, ChatGPT, and tokens for that can be requested. And SambaNova, their cloud for inferencing and hosting models is available as well. And then a number of companies are making tools, software available, such as Databricks, Luther AI, Hugging Face, OpenMind, Weights and Biases. All of these are there. And I just, again, want to reemphasize, this is what makes, this is unique to the NAIRR pilot. I'm involved in several other programs as Access Program, for example. You can't get these resources elsewhere for free, right? At no cost to you, I should say. The companies are contributing these to the pilot, and please do take advantage if these can be support your projects. So from there, though, we'll move on to some of the federally supported resources. These are the GPU and CPU resources. So as you can see here, I'm not going to run through all of these. This information's all on the website that's listed on this page here. There's GPU resources ranging from V100s and RTX 5000s through A100s through a number of newer H100 systems now being made available. And then if you still have CPU needs, there's a number of resources with several generations of CPUs from Intel and AMD. So again, many of these have slightly different configurations, so you're encouraged to look at the resource descriptions to make sure you are asking for what these resources can make available to you. And then finally, other federally supported resources are not your typical GPU resources. So the NeoCortex system is Cerebras CS2 systems, and I believe maybe even a CS3 system now. SDSC's Voyager has Intel Habana Gaudi training nodes. The Argonne National Lab AI test bed has 4 different architectures available: the Cerebras CS2, a Samba Nova data scale system, a GraphCore Bopod, and a Grok LPU inference engine, all available for you to try out. Indiana's Jetstream 2 Cloud has a number of A100 GPUs, and they can be configured in a cloud services. The Texas A&M ACES system is a composable system that has a wide range of processor and accelerator options. So it has some NVIDIA, but also has things like an NEC vector accelerator, for example. And then, of course, the Fabric is a distributed compute and network platform for network scale experiments and projects. All these are federally supported and available through the NAIRR pilot. Now, the NAIRR classroom resources are slightly different. They're not the same. So if you have a classroom project, you'll want to consider tailoring your project to this set of resources. So NIH Cloud Lab has access to AWS, Google Cloud Platform, and Microsoft Azure with cloud credits per student. So they're targeting biomedical courses there. The Prototype National Research Platform offers GPU resources and a Jupyter platform. However, look at the types of GPUs. They don't tend to be A100 class resources. So be sure to pay attention to what types are available there. Vocarium is a private sector partner. They have advanced training-oriented Jupyter-based notebooks that can be connected to GPU resources. And again, the Jetstream 2 Cloud is available here as well to support classroom activities. Just to bring the point home, all these resources offer AI-ready research environments. Most sites will have your standard AI software tools ready to go, like PyTorch, TensorFlow. They're already installed, they're ready to go. Some of these public sector sites are now hosting open source LLMs. So Llama, DeepSeek, more can be available. So if that's what your need is, you don't have to spin them up and host them yourself. Jetstream, for example, and Purdue are both offering services that host these LLMs for you, so you don't have to deploy them yourself. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the wide variety of non-GPU options, inferencing services, the commercial LLMs, OpenAI and Anthropic, many different models through Hugging Face and so forth, and all the commercial workflow and data management software tools, again, Databricks, OpenMind, Weights and Biases. There's a lot of software support for your project there. And again, more than just hardware, these resources are full service. They'd have not only the hardware, but also support teams, training courses, related activities. So you're not going in cold. And then I wanted to point out as well that the NAIRR pilot has a number of other resources that you don't need an allocation for. The link here, you can go see data sets, documentation, training, models, and other resources contributed by agency partners like NASA, NIH, USGS, and others. So there's a lot out there at the pilot that even if you don't need compute resources, there's other resources available for you to access. And I think that's what I wanted to cover today, and I'll be happy to take questions later on after the next presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave. That was really great. And I popped this in the chat too, but that was a lot of information about GPUs and things. And if, I know we have some folks from the administrative side of the house and whatnot, there's a lot of computational resources. There's a lot of knowledge transfer and things going on too. And that's why we're all here to help. So great information, Dave. And we're going to move over to Tim, who's going to talk about requesting resources and how you would work through that process.
Great. Thank you, Shelley. I assume everyone can see my screen?
Yes.
It's the proverbial question. So thanks, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today's presentation will provide an overview of the proposal and review process for requesting allocation of technology resources available via the United States Pilot NAIRR Program. As mentioned before, my name is Tim Middlekoop, and my colleague Lauren Michael, who usually is with me on these presentations, is unable to join us today. So we're co-principal investigators on a National Science Foundation grant awarded to Internet2 in partnership with the Campus Research Computing Consortium of Research Computing and Data Professionals. Through this grant, we are supporting the NAIRR pilot communications and user facilitation activities by leveraging CARC's network of these professionals who support educators and researchers across the country. Internet2 is a nonprofit.edu that operates the National Research and Education Network backbone and supports related collaboration technologies and communities like CARC and its partners. While today's content does not necessarily reflect the views of the National Science Foundation or other partners of the NAIRR pilot, such as Shelley, we have received significant review and input to this content of this presentation from NSF officials and from others executing the proposal, allocation, and user facilitation components of the NAIRR pilot. So today we'll briefly introduce the types of computing and data resources available through the NAIRR pilot. Dave did a great job of detailing those resources. And we'll also discuss requirements for proposers seeking access to these allocations for teaching and open science research activities. The majority of this presentation will focus on guidance for proposing access to NAIRR pilot resources with descriptions of the review and allocation process, specific proposal instructions and review criteria, and common reasons for rejection. A lack of details and resource calculations has been the most common reason for rejection, and so we'll spend a fair amount of time on that discussing the appropriate resource estimates in the latter portion of the presentation. In this presentation, language will appear in italics when it has been taken directly from the call for proposals or elsewhere on the NAIRR pilot website. For those less familiar with the NAIRR pilot program, and its overall objectives, we recommend consulting the resources on the page linked here, which describes the full scope of agencies and other partners, allocation resources, and available funding. One thing to remember that the NAIRR pilot is a pilot and it's not a fully funded program, and such some of the processes and associated programs will continue to grow and improve. So please visit the website for the latest information. The NAIRR pilot welcomes you to apply for a resource allocation for your AI-related research and education projects. Some examples of use cases for NAIRR pilot resources include delivering hands-on AI courses, workshops for teaching high school students to apply pre-trained AI models to data with notebooks, developing new foundation models using large-scale medical imaging sets, or even monitoring wildlife. There are a large range of potential applications, resource needs, and technologies. Computing capacity models, tools, and data resources allocable via the NAIRR pilot are listed on the web pages for the AI-relevant research projects and for AI-relevant classroom and educator activities. You can also view a recording of this presentation about the NAIRR pilot resources from the inaugural NAIRR pilot annual meeting held earlier in February of this year, but you saw a much more up-to-date version just now. Those of you interested in proposing allocations of resources should check the portal for new or changing opportunities and details. The availability of resources may change, such as the NVIDIA DGX system, due to demand or additional resources may come available. And every time Dave gives a presentation, he always is talking about new things that are coming online. The Research Resources Call page contains some information for proposals that applies across both calls. And then each call page additionally lists relevant resources with filters for viewing specific types of resources with these. For example, you can select to see only resources with GPUs available to the NAIRR pilot. Each provider can be expanded to display details about the various resources available, with some providers providing multiple resources associated with different filters. There will also be important information relevant to the proposer's specification of resources, quantities, and in just a few cases, resource-specific requirements for proposals. Proposals must align with these resource-specific requirements. Importantly, NAIRR pilot awards are for access to technology resources and do not provide funding that can be used to purchase materials or cover effort. While some commercial resources are displayed in units of US dollars rather than units of technology to be consumed, awardees are granted access to the proposed amount of technology resources and are not granted the dollar amount. You also see that the Classroom and Educator Resources call also contains important information and requirements. This page has a similar tool that lists resources available for courses. Importantly, the available resources and information requirements for them differ between the research and Classroom and Educator calls. At this time, proposals for allocations of these resources are accepted at any time with a soft deadline around the 15th of the month, ahead of the monthly review process. Research proposals should be submitted if and when a project is ready to immediately take advantage of the requested resources upon a favorable review and notification, according to the timeline described in the slide. Classroom and Educator proposals will need to list a separate start date for the courses described. Proposals are peer reviewed approximately monthly by a recruited set of peer reviewers from the AI, research, education, and computing communities. Selected proposals are then matched and perhaps adjusted or declined by a matching committee based on preference or resource availability. Adjustments may be made if the proposal's scale of resources is not well justified. Awardees can expect to be notified within 3 months. Turnaround times may vary on the number of proposals received for that month. Finally, PIs are expected to provide regular progress updates to demonstrate progress. Even though there are separate research and educator and resource calls with their own requirements, there are a number of common requirements. For example, the principal investigator, lead instructor, and other users or learners must be from an eligible organization physically based in the United States, though this does not mean that these individuals need to be U.S. citizens. Award details and abstracts will be published on the NAIRR Pilot website. Any relevant pre-existing grant funding must be described in the proposal, and activities without prior merit review are subject to additional scientific or pedagogical review. Please note that there are general requirements at the top of the Researcher Resources Call page that also apply to the Classroom and Educator Resources Call, but separate proposal preparation instructions and other requirements for each call, as we'll discuss next. We'll start by discussing the proposal instructions specific to the Classroom and Educator call. So if you're teaching a class, this is the section for you. As indicated earlier, the NAIRR Pilot Classroom and Educator Resource Call is open to US-based undergraduate and graduate courses in short-form training sessions for other groups of learners, and all instructors and learners must be physically based in the United States. Instructors are invited to a NAIRR Pilot chat channel and expected to provide an exit interview with feedback to improve the NAIRR Classroom and Educator Pilot. Proposal instructions are included in the resources call. The 3-page project description must follow a pre-described outline to address specific review criteria. Other supporting documents are counted separately. There are specific document format requirements that are available via the web page. Proposal submission form is linked on the bottom of the call's web page, and be sure to read the submission beforehand as it contains additional information. Submissions must be associated with the proposal institutional email address, so don't use something like Gmail. The review criteria for Classroom and Educator proposal submissions is as follows. The proposal must demonstrate alignment with the educational and workforce development focus, and it must demonstrate that the course is ready to teach. The course syllabus should be ready to go with a specific start date, and instructors should have tested a majority of the course content on similar systems with other individuals, such as TAs or in other classes. There's an expectation that resource providers are not the primary source of technical support for learners, and such proposals should address on how instructors will support learners. Prior experience teaching previous classes with similar content or technology is a plus for demonstrating readiness. Critically, and given that this is a request for technology resources, the proposal must match the resources offered and align with the resource-specific guidance on how to request them. Here's a hypothetical example based on a real excerpt of a resource justification from a Classroom and Educator proposal. Please take a moment to read it. The proposals are requesting both AI notebooks and computing capacity, with each expressed in a different resource-specific service units and with clear multiplication per the number of learners and hours. The proposal is also requesting support to integrate GPU resources, which is an which is an applicable form of support to requests so that the instructor is prepared to directly support all learners. Also note how specific the numbers are, and that the calculations are obvious, and that they are placed in a table for clarity. This makes it easy to see what is being requested. Instructors may also wish to request access a few months before the class starts for preparation time. Now let's switch to the proposal requirements for the research resources call. For complete eligibility requirements, please refer to the NAIRR Pilot website. We'll highlight a few of these here. Projects must be open and actively shared with the community. Use of resources must be completed within 12 months. It is acceptable to split complex or long research projects into logical parts across multiple separate resource requests. Projects are required to complete regular progress reports and a final report. Please see the URL listed here for details. Research proposals should align with the NAIRR Pilot cross-cutting focus areas. Projects in other areas of AI research and applications may be secondarily considered for allocation. While we will not read all these here, you can refer to the website when preparing your proposal. Please note that this has been recently updated, and always consult nairrpilot.org for the latest information before submitting. One way to assess alignment to the focus areas is to look for the awarded abstracts on the resource awards page. Here you can also find information about the size and specific resources awarded. We now outline the proposal submission process. First off, it is very important to read and follow the call and the instructions. Secondly, it is important to recognize that a NAIRR Pilot resource is not a research proposal, but a request for computational and data resources. So the structure and review criteria for proposals may be new to you. This has two implications. The first is that you must demonstrate that you are ready to immediately use the resources. The second is that it should fundamentally change how you write the proposal. Along these lines, it is important to note that proposals not supported by a merit review grant are subject to additional scientific review. For this reason, you must include related grant funding information with the proposal. Only after that, prepare the proposal, then you review eligibility requirements, prepare documents that meet review criteria, which we'll cover next, and finally submit it via the NAIRR Pilot website. On a later date, you can request supplement to the award to add new or more resources or request more time. The project description outline is broken down into 4 parts. Part A covers the scientific and technical goals and should be friendly for a general audience, not written for experts. Avoid complex technical words and do not use unexplained acronyms. All this should not take more than a page. If proposals include multiple projects, aims, or phases in the same proposal, it is important that the requirements and review criteria are covered for all of them in 3 pages. This includes detailed calculations of resource estimates for each. Thus, proposals may wish to submit separate proposals timed appropriately for different projects, aims, or phases. Part B covers the compute, storage, and other resource estimates and justification, which we'll cover in detail later, and these must align with the scientific and technical goals. Part C details any support needs, in addition to restrictions on code, data, or access should be noted here. And finally, Part D covers the team and team preparedness. Among other things, this is where you cover the team's experience with similar systems and scales. If others are going to be doing important work, their role and backgrounds need to be covered in this section. One thing is worth repeating: read and follow the instructions. I'm now going to go over the details of the review criteria. The proposal is reviewed according to the following criteria: alignment with focus areas, project readiness, technical feasibility, resource needs, team knowledge and experience, and resource estimates and justification. With regard to program alignment, reviewers will be asking whether your proposed work requires resources like those available via the NAIRR Pilot that are not otherwise available to the proposal. Be sure to address this criteria by articulating alignment with the specific NAIRR Pilot focus areas and describing why you are pursuing resources available via the NAIRR Pilot. Feasibility. Is this an appropriate approach? Demonstrate the scientific and methodological feasibility. What methods are you using? Do you have some initial results? What other similar work is there? Demonstrate data feasibility. Do you have the data? Do you have access to the data? Is it ready to use? Is it regulated data? Demonstrate computational feasibility. Does it work on a subset or a reduced model? Will it run on the requested resource? Will it scale? Project readiness. Is this the appropriate time? Projects and team members should be ready as they can be to use the requested resources. Any background research, development, testing, optimization that does not require this resource should be completed and described as such. This should be relative to the described project phases, timelines, and scope of work, and should demonstrate that the project is ready to use the requested resources. This is especially important for data which should be ready to use, and have any relevant data use agreements in place. The proposal must indicate support needs relevant to the use of the NAIRR pilot resources. Prior use of a resource provider and working with them, perhaps via their office hours, can go a long way to demonstrate readiness. Team experience. Is this the right team? The proposal should describe the appropriateness of a team given prior experience with the methods, resources, and scale. Some resources are at federal facilities with restrictions. Please provide a list of team members that will require accounts on resources along with their citizenship. Need for resources. Are these the right resources? There are a wide range of resources available via the NAIRR pilot, and you should utilize and justify the ones most appropriate for the computation and for the team. It is best to take the time to evaluate a resource and request it specifically, which also helps demonstrate that you are ready to use the resources immediately. Be sure to complete and describe any performance differences as part of your proposal. A startup allocation is a great way to accomplish this. You should also consider the availability of resources, as Dave mentioned earlier. For example, 80 gigabyte A100 GPUs are a limited and heavily used resource. Do you really need an A100 with 80 gigabytes? Selecting multiple similar resources that can be substituted may be useful only if you can clearly demonstrate how your computations perform on more than one resource or hardware type, or you know of multiple resources that have the same hardware. In this case, be sure to clearly indicate which resource can be substituted. If you really don't know what you need, we strongly suggest attending the NAIRR pilot or resource provider office hours to help with your selection and testing before you submit a proposal. You should also consider a startup allocation, which was just announced. Resource estimates. Is this the appropriate amount of resources? You need to clearly articulate the amount of resources that you need based upon prior requirements and scaling information, perhaps from similar work. Include specific benchmark tests and or citable data from others. Failing to do so is the most common reason for rejection or for a significant reduction in allocated resources. For each methodological linked project phase or category of AI-related computational tasks, how much computing time is needed on which resource type, and for how many such computations. How much data storage is needed for inputs and generating outputs. The most compelling estimates are based upon benchmark tests with smaller portions of data or computational work that can be scaled to predict the full resource needs. If you need help with benchmarking, the NAIRR pilot has the resources to help you. For clarity, proposals should summarize calculations via tables that capture benchmark values and relevant scaled-up calculations totaled across project tasks or phases. Be sure to use resource-relevant units. For example, GPU hours, if a resource is allocated in some other units, be sure to include a conversion for those units. For example, service units or dollars. For some resources, mainly public, commercial cloud, you are also required to include a link to the results of the resource pricing calculator. Be sure that this link works. Remember, this is a math problem. Show your work and you'll be graded on your answer. So, how do you get good estimates? You test. Testing has a lot of benefits beyond just the numbers. It also demonstrates the project readiness. Obviously, you may not have the resources to do a full test, but you can run a test on a subset of the data, even though the results may not be scientifically meaningful. You may also want to do testing. You may also be able to do testing that may be more scientifically meaningful on a reduced resolution or precision data set. Remember, scaling is often nonlinear and 2 data points is linear. However, one thing you should do is use similar hardware such as GPU type and memory size and environments. For example, don't assume that it is trivial to move from an HPC system to the cloud. For the cloud, there are charges beyond compute and storage that are hard to estimate. Testing is essential. One way to test is to use systems already available to you or to leverage a startup and testing options available from many of the resource providers and from the NAIRR project. There's now a NAIRR pilot startup allocation on a subset of resources to help you get prepared with a modest allocation. This allocation is for 3 months and is a smaller, lighter weight request. See the NAIRR pilot website and click Start a Submission for additional details. Here are some other resources that you can use for testing. Most have no cost startup or exploratory type allocations. If you have a graduate student or postdoc, the Access Explore allocation is an excellent way of exploring Access resources. And Dave's slides went over a lot of these in greater detail. We'll wrap up this section with some common proposal pitfalls. To be honest, we're being blunt here, but they're based on our experience as reviewers and we want to help you succeed. The number one pitfall is not including sufficient detail for the resource request calculations. The statement, "We estimate we need 20 million GPU hours," by itself is not a sufficient justification for requesting millions of dollars worth of compute. One thing that may help you is to imagine that this is a question on exam and the students are asked to show your calculations. Another common pitfall is the failure to demonstrate that the team is ready for immediate use of the resources. You should provide details that show that the team has experience with similar resources and scale. Yet another way of demonstrating that you're not ready is by saying, during the first 6 months of the project, we'll be obtaining and preparing the data. Finally, another pitfall is to use the same language you'd use on a general research proposal. This will set your proposal in the wrong direction. This is a request for resources to complete a specific calculation, not to do specific research. We'll now go over some examples, some good, some not so good. The following examples are based upon actual proposals. The NAIRR Pilot website hopes to post full exemplar proposals soon. All right, let's just take a second to read this. How would you rate this resource quantification? What is missing from the example? Even though this is a reasonable framework, it does not contain nearly enough information to justify the resource request. The hours and the storage are not broken down, there are no calculations, nor a connection to the methods that they are going to use. This slide just repeats what I just said. We're not going to attempt to fix this, but don't worry, we have some other examples coming up. Take a look at this example. What do you think? Is this a good resource quantification? Unfortunately, there are issues here as well. Upon initial inspection, there are lots of numbers apparently from benchmarks. However, it's not clear how the benchmarks relate in scale or complexity to the proposed work. And the benchmark requirements are not connected to the total via some numbers, anticipating training and tuning computations. There needs to be some multiplication and addition, and the numbers need to actually add up to the total. Make it easy for the reviewers to see and check your math. Again, this slide just repeats what I said. The next example is much better. Now that you understand the importance of testing, we now present an example that was rated excellent. Take a moment to read it. Note the detailed calculations as well as the detailed testing. See how the tables make things much clearer. Finally, let's look at another one. Take a moment to read it. How is this one different? What do you like? As you can see, it's easy to follow how the resource request was arrived at. Take the number of unique monthly users, test how many tokens are required per user per month, and then compute the total number of tokens required for this project and convert it into dollars. In this case, if you do the math, it ends up to being about 15 input tokens and 75 output tokens per unique user, which sounds reasonable. As you can see, this gives a lot of insight into what is being done. If I were to improve this request further, I would spell out the token consumption per user in the calculations, and I will add a summary table at the end to show this information. Also note that they specifically indicate GPT-4o. In some scenarios, specific choices may have an impact on resource consumption rates. Also note the consistent use of units. Without units, it's just a number. And remember, show your work. So what did we learn today? This is a resource request proposal, not a research or course proposal. Adjust appropriately. Demonstrate that you're immediately able to start using the resources. Read and follow the instructions. Provide detailed justification and calculations for your resource request. Show your work and ask for help. Leverage office hours. Finally, here's some links to getting help, all of which you can find on the NAIRR Pilot website. If you have questions, you can attend the NAIRR Pilot office hours or submit a NAIRR Pilot ticket after the website, on the website. And be sure to download today's slides for future reference. Speaker notes are included. And here's our acknowledgements. We'd like to thank everyone who provided input in forming our development of this contents. As a reminder, any opinions, findings, and conclusions or recommendations expressed in this presentation are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the views of the National Science Foundation.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, we have time now for some questions. We're a little out of schedule, so we have a lot of time for questions about any of the topics here on that you've seen, any other topic about NAIRR, any other things that you have an interest in. I believe that there's the Q&A tool, which probably is best for submitting questions, but you can put them in your chat as well. And I know we had one question already, but I'll repeat it here. That was about, how can you receive help if you with writing an allocation proposal? And so you can go to office hours or submit a ticket in our ticketing system, or you're welcome to email myself or Alana Romanella for additional help as well. And if we can't help you, we'll point you to the right person. So what other questions do people have?
So one thing you'll note that my presentation was very detailed. There's a lot of details in there, and that's because we always got tons of questions coming back from the presentations we did before, and so we've always included those in the presentation as we go forward. So that's why there's so many details. So be sure to download those slides and take a look at them. They're not the authoritative answer, but it'll at least get you in the right direction and get you started in the right direction. So I'll just repeat again, this is a resource allocation proposal, and so you need to justify your use of the resources, not to justify your science. And so just spend time doing that. If you have not done that before, just think back to the first time you wrote a first research proposal. That's a different mindset, so think about getting some help doing that. Hopefully those examples will be posted on the website so you can see them. But just really, you think about a reviewer and they're going to say, oh, does this make sense? Is this justified? Can I justify that particular number?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Tim. One thing that we've been learning from the user support side is that's one of the things that kind of trips people up a lot as well. I don't know how to benchmark. That's what that's called for those of you who are unaware. Benchmarking, and how do I prove what resources I need? So again, reach out for help if you need it. We're also looking at getting some information together to help folks with the training and whatnot on that.
And you'll typically do this later in the whole phase of doing your research. You don't want to make this part of your, oh, I have an idea, let's get an allocation. No, you want to get the data in, start some experiments, have things break, your laptop starts to melt down. So you go to your local campus cluster, you start to melt it down, and now you want all the GPUs in the world. By that time, you'll have the experience to say, hey, I need this many GPUs. This is what it's going to look like. This is kind of the data. And you can go do it. And there are no size limits for the allocation request. There is obviously limits to the number of resources that are out there, but if you have an awesome idea and everyone thinks that it's going to change the way science is going to be done, then that's a justification for all these resources. And the way you do that is start off small. So obviously you're probably working on your laptop, but you can also move to the NAIRR startup allocations. And that's a great way to demonstrate that you're ready, because you know how to log into the system. You may even have your data there already, and you've done some preliminary things. And so, you just do it as if you were going to do your scale, because going big is not only getting more resources, it's getting off your laptop. And sometimes getting out the door is the most difficult thing. And so by demonstrating that you can actually get out the door and start utilizing these larger resources on bigger systems is the way to go. Because yes, you can run a system by hand 1 time, 10 times, 5 times. You're not going to do it 6.5 million times. Your grad students are just not going to do that for you.
Dave, did you want to say anything about what you kind of touched on this a bit, but you know, resources that are commonly requested, and if there's any particular pain points you see from folks who are requesting the resources?
Well, I think Tim brought it up too, is a lot of people may have access to a small number of 80 gigabyte A100s locally. It turns out many of these resources don't have 80 gigabyte A100s. They have a lot of 40 gigabyte A100s in multiple GPU node configurations. The biggest issue is when we get a proposal that is so specific to running on a very specific configuration and without any information about whether they have tried it on other resource configurations, which makes it difficult for the resource providers to know if their resource can support the work. So I mentioned, really it's important to show that you have some flexibility. If you are very specific about one particular configuration, resource providers will look at it and may not want to pick it up just because they're not sure you're able to work with them. So they really want to match with projects that they know will work. And so your best bet is, one suggestion is find the oldest hardware you can use to do your work and say, I can run on V100s. If you can do that, anyone with an A100 GPU can pick it up, or an H100 can also pick up the work. But the reverse isn't true. If you can only work on a Grace Hopper 200 GPU configuration, node configuration, you may not find that, and no one knows how you can scale back to one of the resources that are available. So try to look at what's available and then do your benchmarking on one of those resources. Again, the startup allocations are perfect for that because those are existing resources and you can then build from there.
Just note that the H100 and H200 systems are starting to come online. And so those are a little bit different machines. And also note, as the generations change, the performance between 64-bit precision and reduced precision have changed. So make sure you benchmark on specific ones, because you may hit some of the cases where they are multiple times slower than even the previous generations, because they're optimized for the AI workloads a lot of the times. Well, since you're doing AI, that's a great, it's probably not going to be impacted, but you still want to check it because you might have some assumptions in your code about the different precisions. So just note that the performance characteristics of the different GPUs can change.
I see we have a question in the chat. I also see that Dave is typing the answer to said question in the chat. So I don't want to steal his thunder. But I suspect I know what he's going to say, which is that not officially, although several folks on this call are actually trying to change that here within the next few months.
Yeah, my suggestion is put in a ticket about the quantum resources. It's the cloud providers do have them out there, but it's not clear if that's part of their memorandum of understanding or with the NAIRR pilot. So put in a ticket and we get that clarified for you.
And the nice thing about the NAIRR Pilot website is the resource selection thing is very specific on what's available and not. So make sure you go to there and take a look at what it is. Another pro tip is go into the submission process and actually go through the process of the submission, even though you're not going to submit it. And there's some additional boxes in there that you can read that information that you'll know at the time. And it'll give you some additional insight on how the resources are allocated. So when you write your benchmarking up and your table up, that you'll be able to specify it on how it's being requested. So you don't want to have any surprises at the last minute in terms of, oh, I did these scaling studies and they don't kind of match the way things are being done.
And one thing I just popped in the chat too, this is more access in there, but a lot of the resource providers and access are the same resource providers in NAIRR, not the industry folks. But if you're looking for some of the federally funded resources, or if you're looking at NAIRR or access, what I popped in the chat is a tool that can help you find some of these, you know, bits of software. So you can, in the software section, for example, you can type in just quantum and it'll share with you what would be available there. So this is a little bit tangential to NAIRR, but related as well. One question I have, and maybe Alana, I'll pose this to you, but you know, this certainly could be a conversation between us, but you know, there may be folks on the call here, as I mentioned, who aren't necessarily researchers, but maybe who are doing administrative AI. What, you know, what opportunities do we have for them to get involved in NAIRR if they were interested?
Sure. There's actually a lot of opportunities, Shelley. Thanks for asking that question. So some of you may be aware that we've been doing some AI workshops. We started off in Denver earlier this year with sort of a very large 2-day event for intro, sort of all the way up through advanced. And now we're hosting one at the University of Colorado Boulder in August 5th and 6th, which will be a little more introductory focus sort of for those folks that, you know, are saying, hey, I understand just the basics of AI, or I'm scared to touch anything related to AI. You know, I've used ChatGPT a couple times, but I'd love to integrate this in my classroom. I'd like to learn what resources there are. That's also going to be a 2-day event. We're also planning to host a few more, a University of Kentucky in October, hoping to have potentially one in California at USC in January, and then in April at Ohio State. So we have multiple in-person events. We also have a lot of virtual events. So for example, today's event, we're also planning on doing hopefully some things like intro to AI, intro to HPC, I'm scared of AI, careers in AI, sort of these one-off sessions virtually for those of you who want to join us virtually rather than in person. And then, of course, Shelley, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about access and the opportunities that might be there for people that say, hey, I'm just a little scared to get into NAIRR. I see Dave has his hands up.
I can, but I was just gonna say Dave has his hand up, so maybe
Yeah, I
something.
was just going to say, if you're more experienced with AI research, another opportunity is we're always looking for reviewers of NAIRR pilot proposals. So that's a great way to you know, provide some service to the community and also see what proposals are coming through and what a good proposal looks like. It's a great way to start and help out the pilot. So if you have that, you can email anyone here and we'll hook you up with the review committee.
And it's not a lifetime sentence. You can jump in and out when you need to. So just communicate that with the folks that run those panels.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities, and there's you know, the other thing I had mentioned at the beginning is that, you know, we are actively producing trainings and information that's getting out there. And so if there's something that you would like to see that's related to anything about AI, you know, let us know, and we'll see if we can get something out there that would have that knowledge sharing. Okay. Any other questions? Anything else? Anything anyone else wants to bring up? Well, one thing you should take away from this is that we are giving you the gift of time back, which is, you know, a really excellent gift to get. So we're really glad that you're all here. Thanks for sticking with us, and please, you know, reach out. We're happy to help. And we have slides that we'll share. This session is recorded as well if you want to look back and review it again. So thank you.